Thank you. Yeah. So as Gary said, my name's Ryan. I'm a student at Charles Sturt University, where I'm studying K-12 education. I'm majoring in mathematics. Yeah, don't hold that against me, please. But more importantly, I'm a crew camp leader, and I'm also a follower of Jesus. But it hasn't always been that way, though. I grew up believing that there's a God because that's what Mum and Dad told me. Just trusted them. But in year 7, my life changed forever. In year 7, I found out that my dad had leukemia. Obviously, I was shocked and I was devastated by the news. To me, it was kind of finding out that Batman has cancer, I guess. That's what it was like to me. The biggest role model in my life was my dad. He was my big, strong, invincible hero. And I just felt like the world was collapsing around me. But I had hope. I knew that God, who was even bigger and stronger, had his back. And if I prayed hard enough, God would save him. God would heal him. Because God is a good God, and everyone knows that. So at the whole of year 7, I was travelling back and forth between Westmead Hospital and my home, being babysat by someone different every week, while my mum stayed with my father as he got sicker and sicker. But I kept praying. I kept having hope until on the early morning of the 6th of December in 2008, where I walked into the hospital room to find out that my dad had passed away. Now, I hated God. I didn't care anymore. I turned my back on God because I thought he turned his back on me. I just didn't understand how a God who was so loving could cause so much suffering for me. It just didn't make sense. And as a result, I lived in year 8 in a state of depression and hatred of pretty much everything. And then one day, my mum told me that a friend of hers had won a ticket to go to a Crusader camp. And I'd heard of these before. I knew we had fun activities, but I also heard it's where they talked about Jesus and they talked about Christian things. And so I wasn't very keen at that point. But my mum wouldn't let me refuse. So off I went. And during the first few days, one of the leaders there, he spoke very honestly about some of the struggles that he went through as a Christian. And it was through those struggles and his honesty about those struggles that I started thinking about my own. And I started thinking more about God. And so I started looking more into it. I started reading the Bible and looking for the answers about suffering and just life in general. And I found out that God does have reasons for how life turns out. And I started wrapping my head around the idea that God has a plan for us, just like Jess said before, that is good for us, that's going to prosper us, even in trying circumstances like what happened with my dad. So I didn't dramatically change overnight, but very slowly my hatred started seeping away. I started to understand God's character and how he truly is amazing. Just like it says in the 1 John 4:10, that God so loved the world that he sent his only son as an atoning sacrifice for our sin. And so I didn't become a Christian overnight. It happened layer upon layer, each day of camp, until one day I knew without a doubt that God existed and that God loved me. He opened my eyes and softened my heart. And suddenly it just made sense to me. So after that crew camp, I became more at peace with myself, which led me to the person that I am today. And I'm not ashamed of that person. To this day, I believe that I've had prayers answered, but I think the Lord's kindness has been more evident in what he's refused me. Now, I'm a president of the Bathurst Christian students up at my campus, and I've decided in the future I want to be a pastor, which is a complete 180 turnaround from the angry young man that I used to be. And so as soon as I left school, I started leading on the crew camps because I'm really passionate about helping other kids learn about Jesus because I know it works. It worked for me. The crew camps are such a great form of evangelism because they're just unlike anything else that I've ever seen or even come across. On my first couple of camps, I was actually blessed enough to lead 2 Year 12 students, Aiden and Chris, to Christ. I want to thank you all for supporting this ministry so that young men like me, Aiden and Chris, can experience a Christian community, and get to know the love of Jesus. So I miss my dad. And to this day, he's still one of the greatest men that I've ever known. Yet despite his loss, I rest in the knowledge that my loving Heavenly Father guides my steps each day. Thank you.